being sound guy.
Thank you so
And
much.
speaker. No, it's okay. So my apologies to anybody who has hearing loss now. If I did, I tried to help. Okay, so it's my privilege and honor, and very humble honor, to be here on a Sunday where the family of Blythe is remembering Pastor Greg. And speaking in kind of like his stead today is very humbling. But I have to give credit to the Lord and my kudos to him because he was used very much in my life. And so I feel like I'm filling some awesome shoes today. Not big shoes, but awesome shoes. So today we're going to play a little game because you know I can't just get up here on the microphone and not do something different. Right? Right? Okay. So you've seen the game. If you were old enough to remember $10,000 pyramid,
Yes.
then they made it $100,000 pyramid.
Yep.
Right? Okay.
Yep.
Those were like the summer times in the 1980s when I would get up and watch it at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and 10:30 was Card Sharks, and 11 o'clock was The Price is Right. So if you remember doing that. Yeah. So we're going to play pyramid. So I'm going to say some things, and you have to figure out, like, it's things that, and then, or things with, if you can guess what my theme is today. All right, you are. Well, you look like you're ready to go on The Price is Right with that shirt anyway, so. Marriage vows. A book. Say it whenever you think you know it. Presidential speeches. A conversation. Who said it? Yes! We were playing charades. You got it. So, words. I'm speaking about words. And we actually sang about how we sing out to the Lord, and I think Carl was hitting on words as well, I believe. But I was multitasking, so if I got that wrong, Carl, you can tell me afterwards. So I'm going to read out of the Word, starting in the very first words of the Word, which is Genesis chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. I'm going to go through verse 4. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God saw that the light was good. God separated the light from the darkness. So I read those 4 verses, and you've heard those before. You're like, okay, what's he getting at? Then I'm going to go to John, which was, I guess, in my opinion, he was kind of like Jesus' best friend. If he had like his dude, his buddy, his BFF, for those millennials and younger. So John starts writing his gospel. I'm going to read the first 4 verses of that. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. So if you have a Bible app, that's the English Standard Version, or ESV, if you wanted to read along later on. So we're talking about words today, and what you're listening to is words put together to make sentences, and you've been given the blessing of having 2 ears to process each word into language, right? Then, almost instantaneously, your brain converts that to meaning and understanding. It's totally a God thing. Some words are really easy to figure out. If I would say big red house, no problem, right? But if I would say the second derivative of Newton's law of acceleration, that's right. We'll leave that up to the math teachers. Okay, so let me fry your brains for just a second. I'm a very cognitive speaker. I tend to like to think through things to the point of beating something that's been dead for 5 hours. So, but I feel like words are kind of God's gift to us. And if you think about it, words aren't real. Let me clarify that, okay? So, words are the ideas that God gave us to make a connection between people. I can't go to Walmart and buy the word beautiful. It's not for sale. But the idea of it is there, and everybody has the idea of what beautiful is. So is it something that we can like put on the table? We could represent beauty with something that we drew or sang, but beauty is an idea that God gave us to describe himself. It's not part of the five senses. Even though you hear me saying it, you can see me making motions with my left hand. The idea of beautiful is just there, just like along with all the other words. So, okay. So when you have words put together, you get language. Wikipedia is my friend. Language is a system that consists of the development, acquisition, maintenance, and use of complex systems of communication, particularly the human ability to do so. A language is any specific example of such a system. So it's for us. It's for people. Language wasn't given to anything else that God made. So it's a gift to us so that relationship can happen. And it separates us from everything else he made, like I said. So communication is also part of language. It's part of words. So let's go back to the two things that I read before. I read Genesis 1 through 4. I read John 1 through 4. And there's some pretty cool parallels that the Lord was showing me about the words that were used there. In the beginning is those are the only two books of the Bible where in the beginning starts the books. So John, writing his gospel, he had Mark's, he had Matthew's, and he had Luke's gospel already at his disposal. He was older than me when he wrote his gospels. He was old. He had them. They were already in existence. And he decides to go all the way back to, I believe, like beyond the beginning of our world here. And because John says, in the beginning was the Word. So the Word had to be there if the world was going to get breathed through it. So Jesus is like beyond our reality here. He existed before everything. So John goes way back there. He's trying to grab the beginning from beyond what God made. And in Genesis 1:1, it says God created the heavens and the earth. So I think John's paralleling that. He's saying, well, God created the heavens and the earth, but before that was the Word. Okay. Verse 3 of John, he credits Jesus as being there and being part of creation. It says, let me go back to John here real quick. All things were made through him, and without him was not anything made that was made. It's almost like the Lord used Jesus as his mouthpiece to breathe the world into existence. I don't know. That's just my take on it. But it's neat to me that the vocal outpouring, the song of God the Father breathed out through his Son. It's heavy to me. Verse 3 of Genesis, going back to that one, God said, let there be light. That's the first thing that we know that God did. He spoke. That's the first action recorded in the Bible. God spoke. Verse 4, God saw that the light was good because he said, let there be light. And God separated the light from the darkness. It's weird that Moses uses that, like, saw that light was good, and then he separated the light from the darkness, like there needed to be something else done. And I haven't mastered that yet, but it's almost like if the light was going to look more brilliant, then there had to be something to compare it with. He separated the light from the darkness. Verse 4 of John says that in him, or in Jesus, was life, and it was the light of man. So like the light was created first, physical light, because then they called it day and night in Genesis. But I think John is also saying that the light inside of us was that Jesus was also then the light for us. So in creation, God made everything for us physically, but then in Jesus, everything was made spiritually. And it's the first thing that was created. And it represents the light that is his son. And so the Lord wanted me to say this specifically. His light is what gives vision to our spirit. His light is what gives vision to our spirit. We have the sun. Obviously, I spent a lot of time in it in the last week, if you can't tell. Actually, I was in the woods. But there's places where there's no trees. So to me, words or language or communication, it's the connection of what our senses, 5 senses, can't give us to each other, because it's what we can use for each other. That's what words are. And then when we're saved, it's the connection to God. Language, words, communication is how the relationship happens. And you might say, this is really like obvious, but I don't know, I was going deep with it. So there's more that's coming. So if you see in Genesis, obviously God used words to give life and power. So we can use words to give life and light to each other. But remember, they can also be devoid of light, or we can bring darkness towards each other, or draw each other away from the light with our words. So let me look up something real quick. You still with me out there? Yeah. Is this way over your heads?
No, it's good.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about darkness for a second. We're going to flip the coin. So now we're not looking at George Washington's head. We're looking at whatever state he's on about. So darkness is not a thing. It's the absence or partial absence of light. It's like described as what's missing, not what exists. And I was really humbled by this morning. I was, looking over my notes and doing some God time, and I thought to myself, the absence of light. So hell is where there's no light. It's going to be awfully dark. That really stopped me in my tracks. And do we want to point people in that direction, or do we want to point people in this direction with our words? So if words are God's creative process, and it's the expression of who he is, then the enemy wants to get his hands on it too. And he wants to try to use that for a counterfeit, if you think about it. Since you actually have thoughts, usually in terms of language, to bring understanding, then obviously Satan, as you well know, many times, he's used words to lie to us, right? Let's go back to when he lied first. When was that? Anybody remember? In the garden. Jordan's on with this. I'm tickling Jordan's deep thinking brain today. Yeah, Jordan is all over it. I like your haircut too, by the way. Thank you. Okay. So I'm going to look at Genesis chapter 3, verse 1. Now the serpent was more crafty than any other beast of the field that the Lord God had made. He said to the woman, take this first word, did God actually say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? So he leads with doubt. He leads with a lie. And then the woman says in verse 2, we may eat of the fruit of the trees in the garden, but God said, you shall not eat of the fruit of the tree that's in the midst of the garden, neither shall you touch it lest you die. God's words. So what does Satan do? You will not surely die. It's another lie. Bingo. For God knows that when you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. I mean, it just kind of hit me now that isn't that what Satan got himself into trouble? He wanted to be like God himself. was crafty. I'm going to go down to verse 11 in Genesis chapter 3. So we know what happens. They eat the forbidden fruit. Sin enters into the world. They run and try to cover themselves up with green things. And God says to Adam in verse 11, who told you that you were naked? Who used words? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you not to eat? Now, guys, he didn't just say, yeah, I did it. Adam did not. What did he do? He blamed the woman. First, at least, he admitted it. At the end, he said, well, the woman you gave to be with me, she gave me the fruit of the tree, and I ate it. The first words weren't even completely honest. It was placing blame. So he did that. He blamed the woman before he even answered the question. God talks to Eve. What did you do? Did she say, yeah, I did it? She blamed the serpent. Well, the serpent deceived me and I ate. So, talking about words today, I believe that words, which, if you know me at all, you know I use over of abundance of them. And I heard once when I was growing up that women use like 18,000 words a day and men use less than 10,000. And I thought, sometimes words are not necessary. So I believe that words, which represent what we want to express from our soul, from our spirit, from our inner being, are pretty much the most powerful, unsensed, because you can't use your five senses to really, I mean, you can see words on the page, but those aren't actually the words. They're just ink and paper. You can hear me saying the words, but those are just air molecules that I'm gifted enough to move in your direction that your ear can interpret. Those aren't the actual words. It's the idea that the words are the most powerful thing in the world, the most powerful force, honestly. And I had an aha moment when I was at Scout Camp this week on Friday night at the power of words. So think about it this way. If we didn't have words, nobody expresses love to each other, at least not verbally or on paper. Nobody would start a war. Without words, no knowledge could be passed. We'd just be kind of looking at each other. No insults could be hurled. It's not such a bad thing. When you pass language, it's like the living expression of God himself, because he spoke everything into existence. His words, who he was, simply just made it happen. That's beyond me. In his word, okay, it's on my phone. There are these things with hard covers and papers inside that are the old style Bibles, we'll call them, or actual paper text. That word, it's what we have to learn about who he is and how we can get to know him. So, let us take a look at how our ancestors tried to use language to try to get ahead. So I'm going to jump up to Genesis now. If you're still using your Bible, you can just listen if you want. So after the flood, and they go through all the genealogies of Noah's sons, pretty much the next event was the Tower of Babel. That was the next event. It says the whole earth had one language and the same words. And as people migrated from the east, I guess they went west, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. I'm not sure what that is. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the earth. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. And the Lord said, behold, they are one people, and they all have one language. And this is only the beginning, is that word again, of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down. Us. And there confuse their language so that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord dispersed them from there all over the face of the earth, and they left off building the city. Therefore the name was called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord dispersed them over all the faces of the earth. They were united in what their words were. And they thought, hey, let's make ourselves great in our own eyes and build a tower to heaven, have a city here on the earth, and we're going to be invincible. And they actually, if you go back, it says that they wanted to do that. They said, let us make a name for ourselves so we're not dispersed over the face of the earth. Well, they got exactly what they didn't want. Yeah. Because they decided to just do things their own way. I looked it up according to whatever source I found online. There's over 6,500 languages in the world. But it does suggest that about 2,000 of them are spoken by less than 1,000 people. So if you still take those out, that's still like 4,500. In other words, there's a lot of languages. So God said, all right, you got what you want. I'm not sure how many people lived in Babel, but I'm sure there wasn't a lot of conversating going on for a long time. And so they tried to use the fact that they spoke the same words to get ahead. Let me go down to the next event, because then it goes into more genealogy. The next event after Babel was God calling Abram, who became Abraham later on. And I'm just going to read Genesis 12, 1 and 2. He said to Abram, the Lord said, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house. Basically everybody he knew, right? Because after Babel, he could talk to the people that he was with. They happened to have the same language. Leave your language, people, and go to the land I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse, and in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed. So everything that the people that built Babel wanted to do it their way, God just gave it to Abraham. He just said, if you just leave the people that you know, I will make you a great nation. I will give you the blessing that you seek. So I'm going to give a few other scripture references about words. And I'm going to go to Hebrews 4:12. Imagine Jeopardy music. For the word of God is living and active, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing to the division of soul and spirit, of joints and marrow, discerning the thoughts and intentions of the heart. Words are a big deal. And I know about a two-edged sword because I was accidentally using a two-edged steak knife to cut watermelon a couple weeks ago and slicing my thumb. Didn't take much. I'm going to go to Isaiah 6:5. Some people might already know it before I even start to say it. Isaiah says, woe is me, for I am lost. I'm a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. My eyes have seen the King of the Lord of hosts. So he wasn't happy with the words he was using. plenty of other ones in the Bible. I'm just hitting a couple. I'm going to go to Numbers. I like that book being a math teacher. Numbers chapter 20, starting in verse 5. People were mad. Anybody complain a lot where you work?
Yes.
They were complaining right here. They're complaining to Moses. Why have you made us come up out of Egypt to bring us to this evil place? Look at the adjectives. It's evil place. It's no place for grain or figs or vines or pomegranates. Even their shopping list. And there's no water to drink. Then Moses and Aaron went out from the presence of the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell on their faces. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, take the staff and assemble the congregation. In other words, go back to the people that just whined at you. And Aaron, your brother, and tell the rock before their eyes to yield its water. So you shall bring water out of the rock for them and give drink to the congregation and their cattle. And Moses took the staff from before the Lord as he commanded him. You guys know what happens next, right? A lot of people know.
Yes.
What happens? No, he decided to do his own thing again. So Moses and Aaron gathered the assembly together before the rock. And he said to them, Moses says, hear now, you rebels. In other words, listen to what I'm going to say, you bunch of jerks. That's what he's saying. Hear now, you rebels. Shall we bring water for you out of this rock? Like, will this make you happy? And Moses lifted up his hand. Now he told the people to listen. He said, hear now. Listen. And he struck the rock with his staff twice. So he told them to listen. Then he didn't say anything. He actually made them watch him hit the rock. He didn't use the words that God told him to use. And water came out abundantly. And the congregation drank and their livestock. So God didn't punish the people for Moses' disobedience. He gave them abundant water. But he punished Moses and Aaron instead. And he said, because you didn't believe me to uphold me as holy in the eyes of the people of Israel, therefore you shall not bring these people, this assembly that complained to you, that you decided to pay lip service to, that you decided to disobey me in front of. I'm not going to bring you into the land I have given them.
Wow.
So why do you think Moses didn't listen? I don't know. Think about that for a second. I thought he wanted a dog and pony show, personally. Watching you do this. Because maybe he was afraid they couldn't hear his words. Or maybe he felt like that staff carried something, right? He used the staff before when they brought them out of Egypt to perform the signs and wonders. But he decided to give them a show instead of be obedient and have faith that the Lord's words coming out of him would have power. I'm going to go to one more scripture, I think, today. This one. We're going to go to Matthew chapter 13, verse 23. So we're going to read the words of the word. Talking about the parable of somebody who sows on good soil. As for what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it. He indeed bears fruit and yields, in one case 100-fold, another 60, and another 30. So I thought about this picture behind me. Love that picture. This is what we do when we talk. This is what I'm doing now. Because you're hearing what I'm saying, and I'm trying to plant good seed. Right? I have faith that the Lord's Holy Spirit is, speaking through me, and I'm planting seed in good soil. Or at least I'm planting good seed. The soil is your part. What you do with it. You're going to take care of it. You're going to water it. You're going to make sure it's nourished. Because once you leave here, I'm not going to be talking at you anymore unless you live with me. Sorry. So are your words giving life and planting good seeds? Or are they separating, or are they sprouted out of a lie? Are your words bringing truth? Or are they sprouted out of a lie? And I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. If we say something that's not life-giving, and I'm kind of quoting Pastor Kathy now, if we say something that's not life-giving, it's because of some sort of fear in us, or some emotion resulting from fear. It's born out of a lie. Because that's how the devil likes to use his words. That's his number one weapon. So if you use offensive words or language towards anyone in any way, it always has the power to affect that other person. That doesn't mean that it will. But whenever we say something that's not nice or offensive or brings them down, or somebody's struggling with something, and we in our holiness say, well, have you done this? Have you been spending enough time with God? Like, trying to help. Now, I'm not saying that I say all the perfect things, so I can step on my own toes really well. I'm wearing flip-flops. But are we helping them, really, if we're saying things like that? It always has the ability to affect the other person. I think of it when I was with my son at scout camp. I got to shoot at a rifle range. And words are kind of like bullets fired. They don't always hit the target, but they always have the potential to hit it. Right? Ever hear caught in the crossfire? You might not get hit, but you might. So your words might not affect somebody else, but they might. It really is up to them what they do with your words. But they can be life-giving or life-taking. So if we say something that's insulting to make ourselves feel better, then that's a lie, because I'm thinking, well, God, I'm not who you say I am, God. I need to make somebody feel worse to make myself feel better. If we actually tell a lie, I mean, we're acting just like the serpent in the garden, but the lie of that is, it's better to not be honest than to tell the truth like God tells me to. Right now, a lie is better. That's a lie. So even Christians can hurt each other with words. Okay, my wrote my notes way too small for that. So if you keep seeing like I need bifocals, I keep doing this. I can't read my own writing. Okay. So let me share a personal experience. I've had quite a good many God powerful situations up here at this altar. Anybody else had God move here? Me too. And for a long time, I thought I would see other people struggling with the same things that maybe I was. At least I thought I wasn't struggling with it anymore. And I would want to try to use my words of wisdom to try to help them out, because if God helped me with that, then I needed to help fix other people too. No, not good. And so maybe I was trying to validate my own healing from the Lord by trying to will that upon somebody else. Or maybe God's work in me wasn't complete, and that's why I was doing it. Did anybody relate to this?
Yes.
I mean, I've grown up a little. So, let me get to some points here. Do words either breathe life or take it away? So, verse 15, where are you? You guys ready? Okay, so I'm going to go to a song that people have heard if you listen to Caleb at all. And it's called Words. That's the name of the song. I didn't even realize it. I looked it up. Anybody know the song Words? You're going to remember it if you don't. They've made me, in other words, talking about words, they've made me feel like a prisoner. They've made me feel set free. They've made me feel like a criminal. Made me feel like a king. They've lifted my heart to places I'd never been. And they've dragged me down back to where I began. All about words. Words can build you up. Words can break you down. Start a fire in your heart, or put it out. Okay? So the chorus of the song is, let my words be life. Let my words be truth. I don't want to say a word unless it points the world back to you. You can feel the heartache, speak over the fear. God, your voice is the only thing we need to hear. Again, let my words be life, let them be truth. I don't want to say a word unless it points the world back to you. The bridge of the song kind of goes, I want to speak your love, not just another noise. Oh, I want to be your light, I want to be your voice. And that song was playing in my head when I was thinking about getting this message together. You can do that tinkly thing on the keyboard if you want. So, what can we do if you're like me and you struggle sometimes to say life-giving words to the people that you live with, you work with? Sometimes even not saying words can be selfish. I know sometimes I've struggled to even say hello to somebody in my life because I don't know, I get this hesitation. I don't know why, but that's not giving them life. I'm really not necessarily taking it away, but I'm not giving them any life at all. I'm just doing my thing. What can we do if we're like that? Well, when you ask for forgiveness, what are you using? Words. So obviously the cross comes into play, just like any other message we would share in here. So we can ask the Lord for forgiveness. How can you draw closer to the Lord if you're feeling like you haven't been with Him for a long time? And I mean, not just praying in the car, not just praying for your dinner with your family, or I'm saying really focused, no distractions, you and God, nothing else. If you haven't done that for a while, it's words, because you're listening for His. If you have a disagreement with somebody, if there's something underlying between you and another person, even somebody else that's here, how can you mend the fence? Not with wire and bolt cutters. It's with words. So I do want to have some altar time this morning. I want to give you the opportunity to come up. I didn't feel like there had to be ministry for myself or the elders or anyone, but that this is words between you and Him. This is a conversation that you can have with the Lord. So if you know that your words have been not under your control, you've been just rattling them off, shooting them wherever without kind of filtering your thoughts before they come out of here. That's something I felt the Lord said that He'll just talk with you there, or if you want to spend some time with the Lord. Because I know that our schedules are crazy. But when you come up here and you're one-on-one with the Lord, that's the secret place. That's where you get alone with Him. And if you want to have a little bit of secret place time here this morning, that's what this is for. So we might have one person come up, none or everybody. There's no judgment. If you do, you don't. But one thing I would be mindful if you have to leave, that if people are up here, that you be mindful of your words and your conversation, that maybe we aren't so loud, or maybe we are in the fellowship hall. That's why it's the fellowship hall. Oh, okay. It's a nice day to go outside and talk to. Because you know what? As soon as this is over, that's what you're going to do. You're going to use words. Right? Pretty much. So I'm going to pray. Lord, I thank you for the power that you decided to give words. I thank you that you literally made us by speaking us into existence. And that your living word is all we need. Lord Jesus, I thank you that you've made a way for us to reconcile ourselves to the Father through your death and resurrection on the cross. And I bless anybody, Lord, who gives over their words to you in a new and fresh way today. I bless anybody, Lord, who just comes and spends time with you. I bless anybody, Lord, who thinks of these words later on today and has a conversation, a back and forth with you about it. Because the most important words are not ours, they're yours. Lord, help us be better listeners. Help us be better listeners to your word when we read it, to your words when you speak them inside our hearts. And Lord, I just, on behalf of Abundant Joy Fellowship, forgive us for any time that we have used words in a way that did not bring life. Lord, if there's anyone who's ever used their words to harm us, I break the power over those words. Something that the Lord just reminded me at the end here, and I'll close with this, is you can't take them back. Words spoken can't be taken back. You can apologize and make amends all you want, but once words are out there, it's like a one-way street. Like toothpaste. You can't get it back in the tube.